One question we get a lot from listeners that have access to property or they own property that's between, say, 40 to 80 acres.
Yep.
When you have a property that small, you're not holding deer.
Yep.
Deer are just kind of frequenting your property from your neighbors and everything. And I know there's so many different scenarios, and I know you deal with clients of all different sizes, and probably a lot of big clients, big landowners. What is the thought process when you are hunting and you have access and you own a smaller piece of property like that? How someone should approach just an overall 30,000 foot view of that property?
There's one rule that should never be violated. Now, we help a lot of 10 acre, 40 acre people. We help a lot of them. One of my favorites was, not to pick favorites, but there was a lady a couple years ago called. She had 40 acres in Pennsylvania. She was very successful, and I forgot whatever profession she was in. Very, very wealthy, very successful, and she wanted to get her own protein. For her, it was just about harvesting deer, and she chose a bow. What a delight to work with. Nothing about her being a lady. If you don't know me, I'm very family-oriented. She wanted to learn, and she wanted to do it right, and she did not have any preconceived notions. I didn't have to spend half the day wiping out, the old rumors, right? We could just get right to it. It was highly successful now in her hunting world, provides her own protein, all that stuff's great. So if you have 40 acres, 80 acres, whatever, remember, a deer's home range is highly variable. I travel all over. I got high school buddies that haven't left the county since we graduated high school. They're like deer. They're unique individuals. But on average, a mile, 2 miles, depending on where you are. Let's just throw that out. That's not a rule. That's the big average. So if you have 80, you're 1/8 of a deer's home range. If it's a mile. A lot of people don't put it in that scale. Look at it that way. You can expect that deer to be on your place on average 1/8 at a time. How do we increase that? How do we make that during daylight hours? So what we do, we focus like a laser on, we study out a mile in each direction. This is one of the things we're big on. Study out a minimum mile in each direction and figure out, okay, here's food, here's cover. We want to have the best food for sure in the neighborhood during hunting season. If we have 80 acres, we probably can't do it year round. During hunting season, we want the best food in the neighborhood on that property. We may have cover, we may not, depending on the habitat, but we definitely want the best food. And we need that in a way, again, we can approach up next without alerting those deer. And on 80 acres, depending on shape, that can be difficult. The guy's driveway is on most places in America, the wind's coming out of west, southwest, something so west. Just because of how the earth spins, we get a lot of west wind. Now, if you're by the ocean, big river, you may get a lot of east wind or something like that. You guys in Alabama, when I say by the ocean, you're a lot closer to the ocean than we are. So you have a lot more east wind, right? Because of the way that the warm air, cold water, all that stuff works. So if you're on the west, let's say Nebraska, where there's always a west wind, and your only access is from the west, and the neighbors on the other side absolutely won't let you come that way, we're going to cut a trail right off the bat all the way around that property so we can never go in the center. We're going around the edge, as downwind as much as we can, and then penetrate in. We have a client, I won't mention names, he's super famous. Everyone of your listeners will know this person. Not in the hunting business, he probably doesn't want people to know he's a hunter. Has 1/2 section in Kansas. He's in a good neighborhood. And we made the inside of that like a beautiful painting of habitat. And then he's a gun hunter. His blinds are never more than 40 yards in. He never penetrates except to retrieve a deer or work on the food plots or whatever. During deer season, he never goes in that property more than 40 yards. And we worked out a neighbor where, we can come in from no matter what the wind is. So he's not hunting where his trail cameras are sending pictures. He's hunting from where the wind is good. And he's killed multiple 200-inch deer off that, multiple 200-inch plus deer off this 320 acres because it is designed right. And it's in a good neighborhood. We're not going to kill multiple 200-inch deer here no matter what we do. Because we're in the Ozarks. There's not enough groceries to grow those kind of antlers here. But you can make a difference. We grow 150-inch deer for clients in Florida. You can always do better. In the county we're in, this is off subject, county we're in, when we started 20 plus years ago, we bought land here because it's cheap and buy my home. If you're a deer biologist, no one wants to come to Branson, Missouri to hunt deer. No one comes here to hunt deer, right? You come here to go to theme parks or Bass Pro or play golf, beautiful golf courses. No one comes here to hunt deer. It's a horrible place to be a deer biologist. But it's happened to work well for me because I took a really rocky, burnt-out cattle ranch. This is how bad it was. I've never in my career walked a property that had more cattle skeletons on it than my place because they starved to death. The rancher didn't care. Literally. We started with that. A big deer was an 80-inch deer. That was a whopper. And we ended up, with the 170 plus. The genetics didn't change. The habitat changed. And the age structure changed. And you have, even on that property was pretty big, 1,500 acres, but that's not enough. It was long and skinny. I shared deer with my neighbors. And what helped that, and this is, I think, a real important lesson if you're bearing me this liberty. I had this 2-year-old 10-pointer. Biggest deer we'd see on the property, like 5 years into it. I mean, this deer was going somewhere. And I'm working out of state, and my wife called me and said, one of my neighbors has shot a deer and wanted permission to trade it. Now, no one wants to do that, right? But it's the right thing to do. So I said, okay, can you go meet him at the fence and walk with him? And they did. He's a great neighbor, still friends, and couldn't find it. And I get home, and I want to go look, and I actually found the vultures, found it by the creek. And he'd made a shot on his land, blood trail clearly on his land, jump fence. And it was a 2-year-old, 80-inch, 10-point deer. And at first, of course, I was mad. That was my hope. That was my hope 2 years from now. So I cleaned up skull real good, cleaned up jawbone, and instead of being bitter about it, this could be a teaching moment. And I got it all cleaned up, and I called that guy. I said, hey, you home? Yeah, I'm home. I drove around just several weeks later. I said, hey, I'm going to show you something. I go back to my truck, and first thing I do, I pick up the skull. And he's like, oh, man, because that was a big deer for him. Oh, man, look at that. That's so cool. Thanks for bringing that to me. I can't believe you did that. No one would do that. They'd nail it to their barn. They would not give it back. And I let that moment of hype get over. Then I pull out the jawbone. I said, let me show you something. Here's the average wear and tear of a teeth and, blah, blah, blah. And by that, this is a 2-year-old deer. And if you and me as neighbors let this get a little older, we can grow a lot bigger racks. And that's how it started in my neighborhood. That moment is how it started in my neighborhood. Not all the neighbors have bought in by any stretch, but enough of them have that we're getting some older bucks.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we get a bunch of questions from guys who are hunting smaller properties like that. We'll just say sub 100 acres.
Yeah.
A lot of them are sub 20 acres.
Yeah.
And they'll ask, what can I do to see more deer on the property? And what can I do to have bigger deer on the property? And I feel like you've kind of already answered those questions, but I just wanted to touch on it specifically.
Yeah, let's do that. So you want the best food in the neighborhood, and you want the safest property from a deer point of view. If the day's not right, if you're limited to 20 acres and the day's not right, doggone it, you just aren't hunting, or you're hunting real close to the yard. I call that observation hunting. I'm hunting where I can see a long ways, but there's no chance I'm going to alert deer. I'm just trying to gain information. We do that on my property now. We have a larger property, and if the conditions are just horrible, and man, I got time, I just want to be out in the woods, then I'll go somewhere where I do not expect to see a deer, and I'm hunting with my binos way more than I am with my weapon. I'm just trying to get information. That's critical for smaller properties. And you cannot be alerting deer because deer have memory.
So, yeah, I had a guy the other day actually who I was responding to, and he had, I think it was 15 acres, and he sent me the map of it, how it lays out. And I mean, there just like really wasn't a lot to work with, but he was saying he had one stand that they really hunted. And he's like, what could I do to do this or that? And I was like, man, he was close to a big national forest. I was like, I'd go find you some spots in the national forest, and when you want to stretch your legs, when that stand when it's not right for that stand, I would go hunt that.
Yeah.
And leave that for the prime time. And like, I guess you really just have to go off what the property lends you. I mean,
yes,
because there's some properties that just aren't, going back to the stand conversation, you're just not going to have a lot of opportunities on some properties.
That's right. And you have to be realistic for the neighborhood you're in. You can make changes. We would have not had the progress. We wouldn't have made the progress we made on a lot smaller, an 80-acre property. We just couldn't have enough impact on the neighborhood. We don't win them all. My neighbors send me pictures of really nice bucks they harvest. You don't win them all, which is fine. But you got to be realistic. And we have that all the time. When people ask, 10 acres, or, hey, man, I want to kill 2 Bennet Crockett's this year. I'm like, well, I hope you draw Iowa. Because they ain't happening on that 10 acres most likely. So and I think it's real important that if your goals are unrealistic, you're not going to be a happy hunter. You're just not. That's no way to live. So have realistic goals. My goals when I'm hunting with buddies on public land are way different than here. I'm just having a good time. Hope we get some shots in on something that's legal, have some fun. There's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, I think we went too far the other way. I believe there's too much big buck mania. And maybe I was part of the problem early on in my career. I don't know. But hunting needs to be about the enjoyment and providing high quality protein for our family. Really. Antlers are a byproduct. And that's how it used to be. The old buck Poe and, whoever killed a big buck, whatever kind of the hero that year, whatever. There were a few hunters that stood out. And the hunting culture is something we got to hold on to like it's our last breath. Because it could slide real easy. We're at some critical crossroads right now.